On this episode, we are going to be celebrating the 40th anniversary of James Cameron's masterpiece, Aliens. 40 years after Sigourney Weaver's iconic performance as Ellen Ripley, it remains one of the ultimate templates for fighting back against an all-controlling power structure. Helping me break this down, this terrifying corporate machinery, horror, deep space, dreadful adventure into the unknown, is author of Becoming Alien and my guest, Sarah Welsh Larson. Sarah, I am beyond stoked to have you for this conversation because I feel like I wanted to have this chat with you for a long time because of your book, and now I finally get to actually have that conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to talk about Becoming Alien and about aliens and about all of the above.
I was actually, I know I told you this through our email exchanges, but I was gifted your book by a friend after I did a panel on the original Alien movie.
Fantastic.
And a friend of mine, a pastor friend of mine named Will Rose, he gave me the book and he's like, I think you're going to love this. And at that point, I did not know who Catherine Keller was. So I came at your book from a movie, film, like obsessed nerd guy point of view and learned a lot going out from it. But I'm just so excited to talk about this film with you. What can you tell us a little bit about the book? Because I know it's on its second edition now.
It is.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book and maybe even before that, your fandom, how you found Alien, how the Xenomorphs became an integral part of your life.
It's funny. So as Ripley says in Alien 3, I can't really remember a time in my life when the alien wasn't really a part of it. I actually sort of can. So Aliens was actually the first alien movie that I ever came into contact with. It was not the first that I saw all the way through, but I think we had TNT on at one point when I was in high school. And Aliens was on TNT, and I very distinctly remember the inquest scene at the beginning where Ripley is just completely indignant that the company is going to ignore what happened to her crewmates in favor of trying to figure out what happened to their expensive machinery. And I remember the line partially because it was actually censored on the TV channel, because she says, "Good, because I threw them out of the goddamn airlock." And I remember hearing that, and I could fill in the word myself while I was watching it. And I was just kind of taken with Ripley at that moment. I can't remember how much further into the movie we got before we turned the TV off, but I was compelled. And then not too long after that, got to see Alien for the very first time. And that was a pretty memorable experience because it was just me at 10 p.m. in my parents' big house, like alone in the dark. Great way to watch that movie for the first time if you've never seen it before. And then after that, the Alien movies just kind of kept coming and going from my life. I took a couple of sci-fi classes in college. When I started grad school, we kicked off a school year with a screening of Alien, and that was the first text that we engaged with. And then the first movie that I ever showed my husband, our first ever movie date, was an Aliens double feature at the Music Box here in Chicago. And he had seen Alien, so I knew he could hang. And then he had not seen Aliens, and they played it it was a 70 millimeter print, and they cranked the sound. And when we walked out of the theater, I was like, "So what'd you think?" And he was like, "I liked it." And of course, I married him, so
like lucky guy.
That worked out pretty well. Yeah.
Date.
Yeah, it wasn't our first date, but it was our first movie date.
Okay.
And then just for reference for like our respective film tastes, he showed me the Grand Budapest Hotel for the first time, and that was the first movie that he showed me. Very much so, yeah. But it does kind of capture like the whole relationship between those two movies. Yeah. So I wasn't obsessed necessarily, but the movies kept coming back, and Ripley kept coming back for me in a very big way, and so. Like all good things, I guess, it kind of started with a dumb tweet where somebody had like a prompt that was just, what could you talk about for 20 minutes unprompted without needing to like actually study up on it. And I said religion and science fiction. And then Elijah Davidson, who was my editor for Becoming Alien, reached out and said, "Hey, you said this. I'm going to call you on that. Is there anything that you want to write a book about?" And I took a little bit of time to think about it and realized the Alien series was where it was. And by that point, Alien Covenant had come out, I think 2 years before.
Okay.
So I'd spent quite a bit of time with the series and appreciated it. Wrote the book, and I'll get a little bit into the theology piece, I suppose. So
Yeah.
as I was reading for this book, I knew that I wanted to talk about evil, and I knew that I wanted to talk about the Alien movies as a whole, like as a cohesive whole, because they're very, very different movies from each other. And I was looking for a good theologian to kind of use as an interlocutor.
Yeah.
And my husband happens to have an MDiv. So he
What a
handed
good
me a
resource.
couple of books. He's great. It's wonderful. So he handed me a couple of books and recommended a few things for me to read. And one of the things that he handed me was Face of the Deep, A Theology of Becoming by Dr. Catherine Keller, which happens to be a process theology reading of the first 2 verses in Genesis. So for the unfamiliar, process theology comes from process philosophy, which is this idea of everything kind of being in relation and continually becoming. So the world isn't just made, it is continually being made and being understood in relation to other things. Dr. Keller takes that idea and kind of runs with it and says, well, if we're talking about a reading of Genesis through a process theological lens, creation isn't creation out of nothing. Creation is God putting everything in right relationship with each other. And then if you take that theory and follow it to its logical conclusion, then sin is not necessarily disobedience. Sin is the denial of those interrelations. So it's denying the created humanity of other people. It's denying the sanctity of everything else that has been created as well, which kind of offers an additional layer of holiness, I guess, for lack of a better term, for things that are not human, for animals and for other created things. So it is possible to sin not just against a human, but against everything else in creation as well.
Yeah.
And that kind of unlocked the Alien series for me in a big way, because the alien isn't the only evil thing within the Alien series.
Far from it.
It's also the company. It's also the androids. Ripley sins when she says she doesn't want to be anywhere near Bishop, I might argue. So I wrote the book, and I wrote it the year before COVID, and then spent 2020 editing it. So it came out in March of 2021. So when Alien Romulus came out a few years ago, I was terrified that it was not going to fit the grand unifying theory of the Alien series. I was so scared. Went to go see the movie, was delighted that it lived up to the theory, and was kind of infuriated by some of the ways that it goes about doing that. And it made me just mad enough that I got in contact with my publisher and said, hey, can I do a second edition? And they said yes. And now I'm a little bit worried that I'm kind of locked into doing a new edition every time they do an Alien movie. So the ending of the book is me bowing out of doing that ever again. So
okay.
I love these books. I love these movies, and I love talking about them, but I cannot write a new version of the same book every few years. So we're sticking to the movies. We're not counting the TV show. We're not counting the comic books or anything like that.
I was going to say, that was the next logical answer. Was like, so Alien Earth, question mark?
I mean, I dug it, but not enough to be willing to write about it.
And I will say this, like I already off the rails, and I couldn't love it more. So two things you said there that I feel like I need to piggyback off of before we dig into the conversation proper is before I knew about your book, before I knew who Catherine Keller was. So 2 years ago at a conference called Theology Beer Camp, I am doing some panels with some friends, some professor friends, and it was the year that I was doing a panel on Alien, specifically Ridley Scott's form of world building, how he builds out his universe through, namely, Prometheus, Covenant, and of course the original film. So I did not look at the main stage speaker list. I was too focused on doing our own stuff. So after our panel, I go to the main session, and Catherine Keller gets up for about 45 minutes. I was like, hey, I know her from something. And every other like Theo nerd around me was just like, yeah, she's Catherine Keller. I'm like, no, that's not it. It's from a book I read once.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you can see the indignation. Several people were like, you don't know who this lady is. I'm like, I'm just telling you what I know her from, and it's not
so funny.
all of this. And I think I recommended the book to a few people. But then to piggyback on the Romulus comment, I walked into Romulus alone, not knowing who Fede Alvarez was.
Mm.
And that, boy howdy, like
Mhm.
I wish I had watched Evil Dead before that. But I'm actually kind of glad I didn't, because I guess I'm glad, because Romulus was it took me so off guard. There is a scare in Alien Romulus that haunts me to this day.
Is it the reveal of
It's
what's
the
been
thing you're
born? Yes.
it's the thing you're thinking of. I was like, I was like, I just remember being a grown man in that theater being like, oh God. No.
Yeah, I went to see it a second time because the first time I saw it was in a press screening, and I was seated next to another critic who also likes the Alien movies, and we were both giggling like maniacs when the facehuggers start coming out the door. But I went to go see it the following week because I just couldn't shake the movie. So I knew what was coming, and the number of gasps I heard in the theater behind me when it first shows up was just so gratifying.
I would have been one of those gasps, Sarah, because I didn't know who Fede Alvarez was, and every other guy in that afternoon screening on a random Thursday knew who Fede Alvarez was, and they're just like giggling to themselves. And I'm just like, why are we laughing? This is horrifying.
Because he is sick nasty and he knows what he's doing. Yeah.
But I love, like, Alien was scary again. And that's what I loved about that. But man, we're here to talk about Cameron, another fantastic, specifically sci-fi filmmaker who is just like synonymous with the genre. And I want to dig into this movie. I'm going to give a little bit of details, and then we'll go wherever this conversation takes us. And I have a feeling it will land us in a good place.
Oh yeah.
So this film was released July 18th of 1986. I am going to be releasing this episode around the 40th anniversary of the release of the film. So if you're in for Aliens anniversary work, this is, I hope, part of it. This movie, this is astounding to me. The budget for this movie was $18.5 million. If this movie had been made today, that number is 10, 20 times that number. And it made $131 to $183 million, depending on where your international, number sits. The domestic is more around 90, 95. It was directed and written by James Cameron, who went on to, I don't know, just make everything, like Titanic, Terminator, Terminator 2, the Avatar movies, Abyss, like just fantastic films. The cast for this movie is, the names that really jump out to me every time I watch: Paul Reiser, that bastard; Bill Paxton, who is probably the greatest actor to ever live; Michael Biehn, Lance Henriksen, Carrie Henn, and the goddess of sci-fi, Sigourney Weaver, who was nominated for Best Actress for this alien action sci-fi movie, which is just astounding to me.
In 1986, they never did that then.
This movie does so many things that it just shouldn't have done, and Sigourney Weaver is like so much of that. And brief synopsis: if you haven't seen Aliens, first of all, go watch it. Like, don't let us break it down for you. Go watch it for yourself and then maybe come back. But a synopsis for this film is 57 years later, after the events of the original Alien film, Ellen Ripley is found in cryosleep and returns to the remains of LV-426 with a colonial marine detachment to investigate a terraforming colony that has come under attack and lost communication with Weyland-Yutani. She protects a young survivor named Newt, and I would say Newt also protects them, while battling hordes of the deadly Xenomorphs and trying to escape both the corporate exploitation they've been put in and the giant explosion of the planet as they are leaving it. So, Sarah, all of that. There's so much to dig into with this film. I just want to hit our first question. The thing that we are just going to be jumping in right with is the beginning of the film starts with a salvage team finding Ripley, and there is immediately this comment, kind of in a mirroring of Parker and Brent's conversation at the beginning of the original Alien. We're talking about profit. We're talking about bonuses. One of the salvage team members says, well, there goes our salvage bonus. She's alive. And that kind of, to me, just like sets the tone for the film. What do you think about that salvage scene kind of setting the tone for the film?
It's funny. It kind of strikes me as one of the more decent things that happens in the movie because these guys don't kill her. They totally could have just killed her and said, yep, we found this legitimately. But they're decent people who say, like, we found this person. Turns out she's alive. So there goes our salvage. It's kind of rueful. It's definitely like they're not going to make the money that they thought they were going to make off of this wreck. But I actually kind of appreciate it because it does set the tone for the company is bad. The company is all encompassing. The company isn't everybody in the world. And so it's not just that Ripley is a special person because she's the one person who is capable of being a decent human being. Hicks is also capable of being a decent human being, and Newt is, and these unnamed salvage guys also are able to. Fun point, the hand that brushes the dust off of Ripley's cryosleep chamber, that's James Cameron's cameo within this movie. That's his hand brushing the dust off.
That first scene.
It's also funny because it's an apocryphal story. I don't think it's actually true. I haven't been able to substantiate that it is, but the pitch for this movie was James Cameron walking into a room, writing alien on a whiteboard, and then writing an S with a $sign through it. And that being the entire pitch. So it's a story that gets circulated and it's a fun story to tell. And then when my editor found out that I was interested in doing a second version of the book, that's kind of the version of the story that he says about me writing a second edition is becoming aliens. And the funny thing, like, it's academic publishing. There's no $signs in that at all. But
so
it
that
is a fun story.
Your own, like, sense of,
exactly.
like, I don't know, just maybe I will make some money off this one.
Yeah, not happening, but that's okay. We do it for the love of the game. And I don't know. It's also it's interesting just how focused on corporate profit this movie is.
Yeah.
And how much a lot of Cameron's output is as well. The Terminator, not so much. T2, absolutely, because you've got the whole Cyberdyne systems piece where preventing the future is also going to horribly tank this company's profits. And then everything in Avatar is also driven by this idea of company profit. So, it's on his mind for sure. I don't know that it would be as strong a theme if it weren't for the strength of the themes of the first movie, because that is just completely ingrained in the bones of Alien as well.
Well, I think, would it be fair to say that what Ridley Scott does subtly, Jim Cameron comes along and says, no subtlety.
Oh, yeah, which is kind of his MO to begin with. He's not a subtle man.
I know, and luckily for film goers, it's led to a lot of great movies with those themes underlying them. Yeah, it's hard to watch Avatar and be like, you know what? I actually think the guys that are trying to strip the planet Pandora of all the minerals, they're the good guys in this. It would be hard to watch Aliens and be like, you know what? Burke seems like a nice guy. Like, no, you're not meant to root for these characters.
And they telegraph that. Yeah. They telegraph that, like, right from the very beginning. Like, his introduction is, hi, I'm Burke. I work for the company. Don't worry. I'm really an okay guy, though. Like, from minute one that he is a slime ball and that he is in it for a buck and he will sell out his own mother for it. Like, if his mom was on the mission, I don't know that she would survive either.
No, I know that you said I did my second edition of the book. I'm not going to continue. You mentioned comics, though, and recently Marvel did do a comic where Paul Reiser got to write a what if story if Burke had survived, and I dismissed it out of hand because I'm like, there is no way that man would have gotten off that rock. No way. Like, no one's on his side at that point. He's a slime ball. Like, he's not. He's resourceful. He's not that resourceful. I was like, that what if story is not one I specifically need answered, because I like the ending Burke got with Weyland being a much more, like you said, overt, a very foreground part of this movie, not just background, not just the company, not just Mother sending Dallas messages and then them not really knowing what Ash is up to. Their corporate slogan, their corporate infrastructure comes into view more, especially with their slogan, building better worlds. Their actions tend to say otherwise, or they reinterpret them for different means. How do you think this movie shows that the company values machinery and profits more than human lives? I know that's a really simplistic question, but what are maybe some examples of that?
There's some great details for that. I also find it interesting that they say building better worlds, and the focus is on the world and not the people. The focus is on like the thing that is going to drive their profit. I mean, you get a lot of it from the inquest and the idea that the Nostromo was a very expensive piece of machinery. I think they say like 42 million in adjusted dollars. Who knows how much money that is? I'm assuming with inflation, it's a lot. And that doesn't even include the cargo that the Nostromo was hauling. So Ripley is to continually remind the boardroom, like, there were people on that ship too. It wasn't just the ship that was destroyed. There are people.
She's the only one that mentions them. Like,
like their faces are on a screen behind her, and she's the only one who's willing to acknowledge it. Like, they're literally looking at the corporate board, and everybody in that room can only think of dollar signs. And Burke is very much in that vein. I mean, he's sitting down in that boardroom. Ostensibly, he's an ally of Ripley's at that point, but I think we all know, like, he's definitely not. And he keeps talking about how the different pieces of machinery on LV-426 represent like a substantial dollar amount. Like, every time he points something out, that's expensive. Oh, we make those. And the moment that they start talking about nuking the site from orbit, he says, wait a minute, you can't make that call. That's too much money. You should not have the power to make a decision that affects that much money. Yeah. Never mind the fact that Ripley was the one who made that decision a whole movie ago. He knows that she's made that decision. Right. He knows that she is capable of making a decision like that. But he keeps trying to appeal to the power structure of the military and the fact that at this point, Hicks, Michael Biehn, is the only one who is conscious and high-ranked enough to make a decision. And he says, this guy's also just a grunt, and he can't make that call either. And of course, Hicks says, I'll take that under advisement. Let's go nuke the site from orbit, which is just such a great moment. And I love that he says, like, look, I get that you think that I'm dirt. I get that you think that I am worthless. I'm definitely worth less than this very expensive piece of machinery that's going to blow up either way. But I'm still going to blow it up anyway, because it's worth preserving the life of everybody else around here. And so, yeah, it's just like, it's continually peppered in there, and it keeps reminding you, like, there's somebody is going to try to make a decision that's going to profit them over the lives of anybody else. Like, Burke keeps trying to do it whenever he wants to get the facehuggers back on board. And so much of that is just, I see the short-term profit. I don't care about any long-term consequences of what this decision is actually going to mean. Like, this is a guy who is chasing next quarter's profits without caring about next year.
Yeah, that continues to come up in the Alien franchise of people viewing short-term profit, short-term success, or whatever their version of winning that scenario is, to the complete like damnation of everything else. It like we just recently on the channel on the podcast, we did a deep dive into the original Jurassic Park, and Hammond does the same thing, where like he just wants his park open, and people have died. Well, but like only a few. And like I feel like Burke and Van Leeuwen and the Weyland-Yutani people are really similar coded. Of, well, but it's not like that bad. Like I can control this chaos at some point. You talk about in your chapter on aliens, which has an amazing title, and I love it, An Express Elevator to Hell. Boy, howdy, could that not be more true.
That's a line from the movie. All of the chapter titles are lines from the movie.
That's how much of like, I just appreciate how much of a nerd you are, Sarah, in the most respectful way. But you talk about this idea of chaotic uncertainty of like, how does Keller speak to entities like Weyland-Yutani trying to build these better worlds, but trying to control something that wasn't intended to really be controlled? Like, the Xenomorphs aren't intended to be controlled. The planets, you have to terraform them, you have to bring them under submission. They weren't intended to live out their existence that way. What would Keller say to this point? Listeners can maybe dig into a little bit more.
Yeah. She talks a little bit in her book, and I get at it a little bit in this chapter, about how patriarchal, like Western ideas of ownership have to do with being able to conquer something. We'll get into that with the colonial Marines a little bit too, I strongly suspect. This idea of if you own something, if you control it, you have complete and total control over it. You get to make it do whatever you want. That's kind of in line with Western concepts of knowledge. I've conquered this thing. I own this thing. I have complete and total ownership of this thing because I am enthusiastic about it. You get it a lot in nerd culture too,
Oh
where
my God, yes.
nerds will be like, if you really are a huge fan, like prove you're a fan, prove that you understand more about this than me. And if you don't, then you don't own it. I own it and it's mine. And she gets into that sense of ownership as being a very like kind of, well, patriarchal way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of that from Burke as well too. I noticed this time around that he calls Ripley kiddo a couple of times, which is just a very patronizing way to address somebody who was born like 90 years before that specific date. Yeah, and there's this idea of complete and total subjugation and control that I think is at odds with the idea of everything in the universe being brought into relationship with each other. Because if you're in right relationship, you don't need to conquer anything else.
Yeah.
You can just relate with it. And maybe that relationship is a meeting between equals. Maybe that is a relationship where you can teach something to somebody else, or maybe that person or thing can teach something to you. But there is no need to conquer, control, destroy, completely shape something else in your own image. Because if we're all shaped in the same image of the same person who's doing the conquering, the world gets to be a really boring place. And I find that plurality and diversity of thought to be so much more interesting. And it's also a lot more chaotic because you can't really predict what's going to happen because nobody else is you at the same time. And Weyland-Yutani kind of relates with the world in terms of, well, building better worlds is building a world that is suited for us. So we are building a world that is shaped to be like the Earth. We're terraforming it. And that just denies all of the possibility that could come out of the chaos that they aren't interested in. They're only interested in making more Earths so that they can make more profit out of all of the people who they've managed to sucker into terraforming for them. Maybe not even sucker. Some of those people are probably very desperate in the first place and genuinely need that job. That's what life under capitalism is like.
Yeah.
But it's still a really crummy existence. And it's one that they keep on perpetuating because if you have that level of monopoly and control over everything, you can suck as much profit as you want out of something and like effectively make them live in, I don't know, a company town. Like Hadley's Hope kind of feels a little bit like, I don't know, like Space Pullman to a certain extent.
I assume as a fellow history nerd, I love the Pullman reference. I also
live close to Pullman, so
I was gonna say,
mm-hmm.
That's definitely your neck of the woods. I love that idea of a company town where you don't have margin built in. You don't have the freedom to move about in the ways that you would. I know, again, we're this is a little bit off of the movie track, but this does specifically get referenced in there's a novel that was done called Aliens River of Pain that explains what happens between the transmission going out and the Marines getting there. And what the history of Hadley's Hope was. And it is so a company town. It is so the people, they signed up for something, maybe willing at one point, but once you sign up, there's really no signing out. And it happens to Newt's parents. It happens to everybody, whether they're a Weyland-Yutani employee or whether they're one of the terraformers that are just there kind of trying to get these contracts, and they're trying to kind of that homesteader frontier mindset of like, I'm gonna go stake my claim. Well, but also realize like the person funding you isn't just gonna ask for nothing in return. And like the exploitation, I think really takes root when you dig into more of what Hadley's Hope is. And it's not just like a peaceful little farm out in the middle of space where everyone gets to, it's not the Shire. This is Weyland's way of having these people under thumb. So they're building better worlds for themselves, not for the people that are going to inhabit these worlds. God.
They're so cavalier about that too. 60, 70 families, like just toss that off.
Yeah.
And it's the families thing that gets Ripley, and it's the families thing that gets me too.
The kind of along that note, you you make a point in the chapter to say about the company that working for the company without questioning it is a path of no resistance. Often
Mhm.
we hear the phrase path of least resistance. How does blind compliance play out when the company they suppress Ripley's story, but they also are willing to they're willing to substitute the profitability of this colony over any concern she has, even when those concerns are found to be completely legitimate. And they
Mhm.
land there and like, yeah, there's no life signs.
Mhm.
Burke still wants to prioritize the organism, the machinery. He almost gives no thought to the fact that those families are gone.
Mhm.
There's no trace of them.
I made a bad call, Ripley. I made a bad call.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, Carter?
I think it's the calculus of what's going to profit me the most. And the moment that you are no longer profitable for the company, then
Mm,
they're just going to toss you aside. So even if you cooperate with them, that's no guarantee that they're going to feel any loyalty towards you. Like work won't
remorse?
love you back. The company doesn't love you back. Even if you love your job is not going to love you back because more often than not, that job is there purely to make money. And the moment that that piece of that job is no longer considered to be profitable, then it's going to be thrown away. And I think we see this a lot in our world today with the inclusion of things like generative AI. In some cases, that can be a really useful tool, but most of the ways that it is being applied are this is a shiny new thing that is going to enable us to put something in and get something out without having to have the human element, and maybe we can pay less for it. I really hope that bubble bursts because that's sucking the life and soul out of a lot of the work that we are able to do. And again, your job's not going to love you back. So even if you do love genuinely writing like technical copy or whatever it is that you do, if that gets replaced by something that the company deems to be more profitable, then that piece of your life is going to just simply be gone. I That's one of the things that keeps me up at night, I think, is the idea of taking the human element out of it
Yeah.
because it's just simply not considered or perceived to be as profitable anymore. I really, really hope that we all get proven wrong about that personally. So,
I mean, God, and the whole that conversation definitely keeps me up
mhm,
at times. And I have a fair in my day job, I have a very manual labor
mm,
job, and I'm like, well, this body is going to wear out at one point.
mhm, mhm.
And when will it just be easier for them to just cut past my route? Like,
Yeah,
what if we don't actually need these accounts? Like, what if it's not financially, what if it's not financially viable to keep these accounts? I'm like, I think they're financially viable.
yeah, they keep you alive.
Keep me
Yeah.
alive. They keep me in a house. They keep my kids, fed. They keep my bills paid. And yeah, I depend very mightily on that. But for much like what Wayland does, for them to wipe people from existence as inconvenient line items. And
Mhm,
again, we're looking at like the mother is not really a concept in this movie that's
mhm,
used. We get to see Weyland-Yutani board members make these decisions cold and calculated. But watching it back through this time, I noticed that Burke makes an offer to Ripley. They're like, we could be set up. Like if we get these passed, like we could be set up. Burke is trying to climb the ladder to get to the
mhm,
point where he gets to decide who is worthy of being a good line item and who's worthy of being a bad line item. Every single person in that boardroom probably thinks that they are untouchable, but the company has proven one thing: no one's untouchable.
mhm,
And like
mhm,
that to me is the sick corporate ladder thing that we see in these movies as a franchise wide theme is like the faces keep changing, but the sick evil machinery keeps moving. And
mhm, mhm,
you spoke about this earlier on that like we you wanted to talk about the evil aspects, the sin aspects in Alien. How do you see those things most prevalently, sickeningly like displayed? I know we've talked about a few of them, but just like to bring that theological tint to what we're looking at would be
mhm.
great.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's that, that denial of the personhood of others, like the reducing people to a line item effectively is like the deepest sin. I had an interesting conversation with a university student. I live pretty close to the University of Chicago, and I'm affiliated with one of the Episcopal student ministries there. I had an interesting conversation with a student when I was talking about the book and when the book was getting really, really close to being published, where one of them was like, well, is the alien really like actually evil, or is it just a tiger doing what a tiger is going to do effectively? And I think you could read it either way. I do see the alien as being evil because it also is denying the inherent humanity and creativeness of the people that it's preying on. It covers your face. It lays its young inside your chest. It uses you as an incubator and then eventually as food. And it just simply does not care. Like, there is no potential for reasoning with it. And I think the fact that Ash in the first movie refers to the alien as a perfect organism, he sees that as being a good thing because he sees the alien as being able to literally just profit from the life cycle of a human without even having to get into like questions of margins, you know? Like, you don't have to worry about the money part, but it's still profiting in a sense. In a really sick and awful way. Within Aliens, things get a little bit more, I think, complicated, and I think they also get a little bit more meaty because you do have all of those corporate faces. You have Burke continually making all of these calls about who gets to live and who gets to go investigate this problem without even being warned about what or why it is that they're looking for. He's just giving them orders that they're supposed to follow through on. You get a little bit of that too with the structure of the Colonial Marines. And I think it really speaks to the strength of Cameron's script that Gorman is such an inept leader, and you can tell immediately that nobody else in the room respects him as a leader. The only reason that they follow his orders is because he's got that specific rank on his lapel. Because he is a lieutenant, they must do what he says, and they're going to do it, but they're not going to be happy about it. I love when Hudson goes like, he's coming in. I feel safer already.
I feel safer already.
I feel safer already.
Oh man, that's so good.
Corbin and Burke kind of do the same thing where they give orders, but they don't give any justification for it because they are in a position of, they're in a position of authority. And so therefore, whatever they say is supposed to be how the world is going to work.
Right.
But Gorman forgets that when you put a bunch of armor-piercing rounds underneath a nuclear reactor, that nuclear reactor is going to blow. And instead of admitting his mistake and justifying the decision to the people who follow him, he just says, don't shoot anything in there. And of course, because they haven't been told about the danger, they are going to do the intelligent thing and not actually listen to him because they don't have all of the information available to them. And that is the exact same line of reasoning that Burke follows when he sends the colonists out to go find the alien. He's just interested in sending a probe. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just,
thank you
it's
for connecting
all there.
the dots.
Okay, literally. This viewing was the first time I made that connection. So this movie always gives you something whenever you watch it.
So, okay. Sorry, you I feel like Jimmy Neutron. That was a brain blast to me. But is it fair to say, like with the Marines, because I know I want to talk about the Marines because they're such lovable characters, like because Cameron writes them so quickly. They feel lived in, even though some of them don't even last like half the movie. But like Vasquez and Hicks and Hudson, we get to spend time with them. They become like fleshed out characters, not just like grunt Marine archetypes. Is it fair to say that when they go into the nest, or hell, when they wake up from cryosleep, if Apone is not on board, that mission goes totally different because they're following Apone because he has their camaraderie, he has their spirit. He's been the grunt and he's now leading them on this mission. The fact that he listens to anything Gorman says and then relays it to the rest of them it gives Gorman a piece of validation that he hasn't earned. Because Apone's the one that's like, hand him over, everybody. If Gorman's the one standing right there and he says, hand him over, like, hell no, man, I'm not handing this over. Like, because the power structure in that moment, in those situations, the power structure loses its power because people know Gorman is not qualified to actually give them order. He's done 2 drops. Like, 38 simulated, though. He makes sure to clarify that. Like, I just think Apone is actually a very important character in the hierarchy because he upholds the hierarchy.
He's middle management, though. Like, he's kind of doing what Burke does. It's just that he's following the structure that was given to him by the Corps. So he commands the soldiers. He's still under Gorman, and he's kind of obligated to follow those orders. Otherwise, the entire hierarchy just kind of falls apart. So I think in a different movie, if Apone got the chance to survive, he could have become a Ripley, because Ripley is a company woman from the outset as well. She's following all of these orders because she has been given no reason not to. And then once she realizes the company doesn't have her best interests at heart, and that, the, protocol is what the company tells you to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if Apone would ever actually get there, because I think he's a little bit too much of a sergeant in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, right.
But if things went differently, he could have become a different Ripley.
Maybe I like Apone way too much.
Oh, he's great.
I feel like I just he has some of the best lines.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe a more fair comp would be that he's kind of the Dallas of the group. Like he's like, that we were told to do this, we're gonna do this. Like Dallas, like at the end of Dallas just wants to get home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, Dallas, to get home, you can't just do everything they're telling you to do, because that gets you killed.
That gets you in an air duct
with an alien air duct, and it gets Veronica Cartwright yelling into the mic.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see like the Marines that make it through that first wave, like Hudson, Hicks, Gorman, I guess too, Vasquez? Like, what is so significant about their role? Because by then the hierarchy is kind of it's a bunch of
they're all privates other than Gorman,
right? Yeah. Like they're
and a corporal, but
they're just like, it's not as important at that point because they know what they're up against now. So how do you see their role change? Like, how do the Marines distinguish themselves from that point on?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of this comes from Hicks's kind of quietness and his realization that he may be the one in charge, but he's not really the one in charge. He's only in charge by circumstance. And this gets a little bit into some of the costume design, which I think is really good. So they've all got their different decorated chest plates, and Hicks has like a heart with a padlock over it, but he's also got a bullet hole that's been circled and it says "Born Again" right next to it. There's no background that's given on it. It's just an incidental detail. That was a detail that Michael Biehn added to the costume. The heart with the padlock is not actually. So Michael Biehn was not originally going to be Hicks. Originally, it was going to be, I wrote down his name, and I can't read my own handwriting.
Don't you hate when that happens?
James Rainier, he plays Ajax in The Warriors, was originally going to be Hicks.
Okay.
And so he was the one who had the heart with the padlock. And Michael Biehn never really liked that detail because he felt that it was just basically like a target for somebody else to shoot at, which is good reasoning.
Yeah.
But he did add the bullet hole and the "Born Again." And I think that he is someone who recognizes that he has been put into this position partially by circumstance and not necessarily through skill of his own. And he is definitely plenty skilled, and he knows what he's doing. And he's got a level enough head to keep control of the other people while they're all panicking or going to try to kill a superior officer in the case of Vasquez. So I think he's kind of the one who puts the rest of the group on a little bit more of an even keel, because he understands that if they don't all work together, then they are all screwed. They got to stay frosty. And I think that's a good kind of balancing act for Vasquez's impulsiveness and Hudson's like hot-headedness.
Yeah.
And oh man, I showed Aliens to a good friend of mine, I want to say 2 years ago, and she did not go for Hudson. She did not care for him at all.
It's Bill Paxton.
It is Bill Paxton. She does not feel any loyalty towards Bill Paxton, I'm afraid. So she was like, is he going to be like this the entire time? And I had to be like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well,
but he figures it out.
I love when we get introduced to Hudson. He's just like, I'm the ultimate badass.
Yeah.
And then he's the like, he bugs out and freaks out so much. And I think like Hudson is one of those characters where as a guy who like enjoys action movies, I'm like, yeah, I would probably be the guy that's like, yeah, I want to talk about a threat like Hudson talks about a threat. But let's be realistic. When all the shit hits the fan, he is like game over, man is a fantastic line.
It's so good.
And like the way he delivers that line so earnestly. You're like, no, I believe you. I believe you. But then you're right. He does figure it out. He figures it out late. And Hicks, even like up until the last point, he has to tell him like, you know, hey, if you want to quit, quit. Like you keep saying we're screwed, and you're kind of like it's almost like you're willing it to happen. Like, but then he does figure it out. He does find his heroism.
Yeah, I need you to shut up for a second, man, so we can all figure it out. I looked it up. It's James Remar was originally cast as Hicks.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And Vasquez also like she has this partnership with Dietrich, but then he dies saving her, and then she's got this like armor to herself, but she's intuitive, and she finds the heroism in her as well, but she covers the back at the end of the movie. At the beginning of the movie, she covers the front. She's the first one in. She's the hot, she's going in, but she covers the retreat in the end. And I love her and Gorman's last moment. They both find their heroism in that moment.
And he still has his timing off. Like his timing is off. She has to make him wait to release the grenade at the right time too.
What is the line? Like it's like I hate you, Gorman, or something like that.
You always were an asshole.
You always were an asshole, Gorman.
Yeah.
Like it's a great it's great character building like throughout an action movie, and when the characters make that sacrifice play, it feels worth it. It feels earned. And I know we kind of went off on a tangent there, but like with the Marines, with the military being so involved with the corporation, is there any other observation you make there with them having a heavily military presence in this, where like they know like they're headed into a fight this time? Hudson even says like, is this a stand up and fight, or is this a bug hunt? Is this another bug hunt? So they've done this before, just not with this thing. Whereas in the first movie, the crew of the Nostromo is not ready for the Xenomorph. Any way, like all of the things they use to fight that creature are improvised. This is prepared. So any other like observations on them as a group?
Yeah. The dropship even has a logo that says "We Endanger Species," which is that's such a Marine Corps way of looking at
and the dropship is called the Bug Stomper.
Yeah, they're not messing around with that. Yeah, it's interesting. Because the movie at the time that it was made definitely would have been seen as kind of commentary on the Vietnam War.
Right.
Nowadays, with the Marines kind of protecting the interests of a colony, that to me feels a little bit more akin to the Gulf War and the war in Iraq. And also the war that is currently ongoing right now, hopefully ending soon. This idea of military might being needed to protect the interests of the corporation, because otherwise how else are we going to get profit if there are other hostile enemies around? And that to me, I think, speaks as well to the sin of dehumanization, which is that if I'm going to need to fight you for your resources, then I'm going to need to see you as somebody who is not as deserving of those resources. And therefore I deserve them more. And because I deserve them more, even though they're technically yours, or you were the first one to them, then there's a little bit of an imbalance and a not understanding of like what the situation on the ground actually is, or a denial of what the situation on the ground actually is too. So I see that as sin as well. And I think that any time that you get into a shooting war over something like that, that to me feels like a violation of what the world was created to be and what the world should be. It is a fraught relationship. I have family members who are in the military, and so this is something that I've had to think about long and hard, and it's tough for me to say, honestly. But I cannot think of very many conflicts where the fighting has been justified. I can think of a few, Ending World War II, definitely something good, definitely something we should have done. But a lot of the wars that we've gotten involved in since then, I simply cannot think of any reason for them to have been in the first place.
Well, similarly, I come from several generations of men that served in the Marines and the Army and the Air Force, and I know my dad always tells a story of like just a lot of regret, a lot of complicity, a lot of strong feelings in the like what am I now? Am I complicit in everything because I thought I was going into it for this? Yeah, it's not an easy thing, and I think that's why it's a theme. It's a conversation that is always worth coming back to.
Yes,
especially because like we're as a species, much like the Xenomorphs, like we're not running out of reasons to fight and attack things, especially if they look like us. In this universe, we've talked about a lot of like exploitation and the coldness of the universe. Ripley and Newt feels like a deeply personal bond that we can attach ourselves to throughout the movie to kind of not to maintain the human element of it, because Gorman tries to just like get a straight answer out of her.
Yeah.
And Ripley, partially because like in the extended edition we find out she loses her daughter, but also like Ripley never handles the situation the way that the establishment would. She's always the counter narrative. So how does their relationship, Ripley and Newt's relationship, eventually Ripley and Hicks's relationship, how does that like act as a display of resistance against the company, or the structure, the hierarchy?
Ripley sees Newt as a little girl. Ripley sees Newt exactly for who she is. And I love that. This is a hot take. I know you mentioned the extended edition is where you find out that Ripley was a mother. I actually prefer the theatrical cut.
Okay.
Because Ripley does not need to have any justification to think that Newt is worthy of love.
Right.
You get that idea from the extended edition that like Ripley is nurturing because she is a mother. And I think in the theatrical cut, Ripley does become a mother figure for Newt, but that's not all that there is to their relationship. So it's personal preference. There's definitely some great stuff in the extended edition. I do really love Hudson's speech about like, we've got bombs, we've got grenades, we've got pointy fucking sticks. Like it's just
pointy sticks.
It's so great. It's a wonderful line. But you do also get like kind of that shadow of Ripley lost a daughter.
Yeah, it's like
over the entire movie. And I think the
because of
theatrical
trauma
cut is
that
like,
she loves this girl. Well,
exactly. And we don't need that because we don't need that explanation. She just cares about Newt because she's a decent person. And you actually kind of see Hicks doing that too, with like paying attention to Newt, realizing like, oh yeah, that she's a little kid. She can't see the top of this screen that she wants to see. I'll pick her up. Yeah. So even just the act of seeing somebody for who they really are and understanding who they really are in and of itself, I think, is a resistance to the company, because the company, again, is going to just try to milk you for all that you're worth and take you for all of your profit. And if that means that you don't get any like good and decent human relationships out of it, as long as you're making money out of it, so be it. It's also one of the reasons why I really love that Ripley and Hicks start flirting towards the end of the movie as well, too, because it's such a natural reaction for the two of them to say like, you're a competent human being. You're a decent human being. I love you and I appreciate you. And they never kiss and they never act on it, but you can still tell that there's an attraction there. And I love that dynamic, and their chemistry is just so good.
That scene where he's showing her how to use the pulse rifle, and then they get to the grenade launcher part, and he's like, no, I don't think you're going to want to use that. It's just like, you started this. And I'm like, Sigourney, you beautiful, gosh.
Yes.
So incredible. And I think like, well, and I know this is probably not as much of a hot take as I feel it every single time I watch David Fincher's Alien 3. That movie emotionally betrays everything this movie does in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so Sarah, have you ever seen the movie The Mist?
I actually haven't, no.
Well, okay.
You can spoil it. That's okay.
I've seen The Mist. It has possibly one of the most gut-busting, tear-inducing endings. It's bleak. Imagine if a movie started that way with characters you love. And then they're like, but wait, there's more movie. I'm like, nope, I don't care. Like, I'm going to watch it. But Alien 3 is probably the Alien movie I've watched the least.
Oh, that's interesting. Resurrection is my least favorite out of all of them, and the one that I've seen the least. I totally get how much of a betrayal it is. I do love Alien 3 quite a bit because it's the passion of Joan of Arc set in Aliens as a prison drama, and I think that rules. But I also do very much miss Newt and Hicks's presence so much throughout that whole movie.
I love Hicks as a character. And I get it. Like, Carrie Henn didn't want to keep doing movies and like whatever. Like,
good for her. Yeah.
Like, kudos. Like, and I love that, like, in interviews she still speaks so highly of Sigourney Weaver, of like the cast and everything. I love that. But like, this movie builds the human element so well in a movie that's like, it's a war movie. It's an 80s action movie. But then, like, the true horror to me of Alien 3 is that without any explanation, I mean, yes, we get an explanation, but like, we don't get a story conclusion. We don't get a resolution. We don't get any like satisfaction out of those relationships. And maybe that's the deepest horror of how that movie starts, is that, sometimes those things don't have a calming and satisfying conclusion. And sometimes they rip your freaking heart out, Dave Fincher.
Yes, they do.
Sarah, I know we scratched the surface on a movie that has been completely torn apart and broken down in so many different ways. Is there anything that we've neglected to mention in the conversation, or maybe like a shortcut that we took away from something that you want to resolve before we finish up the conversation?
I love Sigourney Weaver's reading of the line, "They can bill me," when Burke objects to them wanting to nuke the site from orbit. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to talk about. This has also been a really good conversation. I don't know. Like,
again, Sarah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I love all of these characters, and I love that this movie loves all of these characters. And I don't know, just really good movie. And so much fun to see on the biggest possible screen with the loudest possible sound.
Yes. Like, if someday they like, say for the 50th anniversary, they did like a IMAX, like remaster, I would be like, every showing that day, please.
Disney, call me seriously, because it's in the Disney vault. I do think that there are a few places in the country that are doing 70mm screenings like this summer.
Ugh.
It's not in Chicago, which is killing me because I need to see it again on the big screen.
How does a city as big as Chicago not get something like that? Oh my goodness.
It's a programming thing. I don't know what's going on with the theater programmers and everything.
I get it why a small town in Nebraska wouldn't get it, but come on, Chicago.
Yeah. It's worth the drive. Yeah.
That would be worth the drive. So, Sarah, can you tell people like where they can find the second edition of the book? Maybe what the differences in the second edition are, and why that is like. I have the first edition. I don't have a second edition yet, and I feel like I'm about to get sales pitched on why I should buy a book I already want.
Thank you. Yeah. So the second edition came about because Alien Romulus is both a book that, Alien Romulus is a movie that lives into the grand unifying theory of the Alien franchise as being about dehumanization. But it does it in a way that I find morally reprehensible, namely the character of Rook. If you've seen the movie, you know, and then if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it and then you'll know what I mean. It's brutal. And also, the rest of the movie is so really well realized. So the second edition has a slightly different introduction. So I retooled the introduction. I retooled the chapter on Alien Covenant because that's not the last chapter in the book anymore. I added a chapter about Alien Romulus. So there's a chapter for every single movie. There is a foreword in the book, in the new edition of the book, by the critic Matt Zoller Seitz, who has been a champion for this book ever since the first edition. He actually hosted a screening of Aliens in New York City a couple years after the book came out and was kind enough to invite me to come out, do a book signing, do a Q&A afterwards, which was absolutely wonderful. He's been great. So you can find signed copies of the book at his web store, MZS Press. You can also find copies of the book wherever books are sold. They're also available from the publisher Whiff and Stock. That's WIPF and Stock. And yeah, that's the second edition of the book. And I swear there is not going to be a third, but we'll see. I will keep writing about these for as long as people will let me.
In some form or fashion.
Mhm.
Like, you're definitely not done thinking over the themes of Alien, because
Not remotely. There's no escaping the
How
Xenomorph.
can you?
Mm-hmm.
As the first movie says, like in space, no one can hear you scream. Like on planet Earth, no one's gonna ever hear me say my last word about Alien, because there's
Exactly.
so much to dig into and process.
And they're going to keep on making them. I actually heard a rumor, I think today, that Ridley Scott is still interested in finishing his prequel trilogy. I do love where Covenant left off, so I would be perfectly fine if they did leave it. And then I think there's also allegedly a sequel to the Fede Alvarez film that's in the works, but I don't know if it's been officially greenlit yet. So,
well, I feel like that both where Alien and its sister franchise Predator is right now, it's like, yeah, it's weirdly a great time to be an Alien, Predator, Fox Properties, kind of fan, because there's a lot of very interesting and fresh things being done with them. Man, I would love for Scott to get to finish his original vision. Michael Fassbender, fingers crossed. That character, like David alone, is an episode that must happen someday. But at the risk of prognosticating for another hour, Sarah, thank you so much. I will include all the links that you want in the episode description. People can go check out the book, and they can get their own copies, get their own signed copies. But thank you so much. This has been a worthy discussion for a 40th anniversary of a movie that is just spectacular.
Thank you so much. This was a delight. I'm so glad that we had the chance to talk about this. I feel like I thought of and we ended up surfacing some stuff that had never occurred to me before.